निवासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते.
Hi guys, we continue our discussion of the Brahma Purana and trying to map out the boundaries and borders of what must have been the ancient Hindu civilization. I hope you all have seen my previous video on this topic, which is called Akhand Bharat Borders, and today we are going to get into specifically the oceans and continents as described in Brahma Purana, chapter 1, section 18. Now one disclaimer that this chapter I haven't even read myself. The previous chapter I had read myself, found out the awesome parts and then made a video on it. This part, whatever I'm reading is for the first time and reacting along with as you guys listen to it for the first time as well. And consider this a sort of an advertisement for what's coming next, is that the next chapter is on the Patala regions, the nether regions. The chapter next to that is what I've already read. I never do this usually, but this time I couldn't control myself. That chapter is absolutely fascinating because it talks about what is Naraka and what would you do that would lead you to get to Naraka. And so there I have found what are the prohibitions, what are the so-called blasphemies in Hinduism, so to speak. So that chapter is coming very soon, like tomorrow or day after tomorrow or sometime. So watch out for that. So today we discuss Lomaharshana speaking to the other sages. He is sitting down in the Naimisha forest in modern day Uttar Pradesh, and all the sages are listening to what Lomaharshana is saying. So Lomaharshana continues, just as the Dvipa known as Jambu is surrounded by a salty ocean, Plakshadvipa surrounds that salty ocean. The expanse of Jambudvipa is said to be 100,000 yojanas. O Brahmanas, Plakshadvipa is said to be double the size. The lord of Plakshadvipa, Medhatithi, had 7 sons. The eldest one was named Shantamaya, and the others were Shishira, Sukhodaya, Ananda, Shiva, Kshemaka, and Dhruva. All these 7 were the lords of Plakshadvipa. Thus, the Varshas of Plakshadvipa are named Shantamaya, Shishira, Sukhoda, Ananda, Shiva, Kshemaka, and Dhruva. O supreme among sages, there are 7 mountains that exist as boundaries of this region. Listen to their names. They are Gomeda, Chandra, Narada, Dundubhi, Somaka, Sumanas, and Mount Vaibraja as the 7th. O unblemished ones, along with gods and Gandharvas, subjects always reside in these beautiful Varshas and in the mountains of these Varshas. Those habitations are sacred. People are born after a long period of time. They do not suffer from physical or mental ailments and are happy all the time. There are 7 rivers in these Varshas and they flow into the ocean. I will tell you their names. Hearing about them cleanses all sins. They are Anutapta, Shikhi, Vipasha, Tridiva, Kramu, Amrita, and Sukrita. These are the 7 rivers. O Brahmanas, the chief mountains and rivers have been mentioned. There are thousands of minor mountains and rivers. The people in the habitations drink the water from these rivers and are always happy. O Brahmanas, all the rivers flow downwards, not a single one flows upwards. O supreme among Brahmanas, the divisions into yugas do not exist in those 7 regions. The time is always like that in Treta Yuga. O Brahmanas, beginning with Plakshadvipa and ending with Shakadvipa, people live for 5,000 years and do not suffer from any disease. Depending on the Varna and the Ashrama, there are 4 types of divisions of Dharma there. There are 4 Varnas too. O learned ones, I will tell you about them. O supreme among sages, Aryakas, Kurus, Vivishvas, and Bhavinas are respectively Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. So Bhavinas are Shudras, Vivishas are Vaishyas, Kurus are Kshatriyas, Aryakas are Brahmanas. O supreme among Brahmanas, right in the middle there is an extremely large Plaksha tree that is as large as the Jambu tree. This results in the name Plakshadvipa. Hari is the creator of everything in the universe and the lord of everything. Aryakas and the other Varnas there worship the illustrious one in the form of Soma. Plakshadvipa is surrounded by an ocean of sugarcane juice that girdles it. This is of the same size as Plakshadvipa itself. O best among sages, I have thus spoken to you about Plakshadvipa. I will now briefly tell you about Shalmala. Listen to me again. O Brahmanas, the lord of Shalmala was the valiant Vapushmat. O supreme among Brahmanas, His sons were Shveta, Harita, Jimuta, Rohita, Vaidyuta, Manasa and Suprabha. There are 7 Varshas named after them. Shalmala Dvipa surrounds the ocean of sugarcane juice on every side and is twice the size of the ocean. It should be known that there are 7 mountains that are the source of jewels. There are 7 rivers that divide the Varshas. The mountains are Kumuda, Unnata, Balahaka as the 3rd, Drona with great herbs, Mount Kanka as the 5th, Mahisha as the 6th, and Kakudma, supreme among mountains, as the 7th. O Brahmanas, the names of the rivers are Shroni, Toya, Vitrishna, Chakra, Shukra, Vimochini, and Nivritti as the 7th. Remembering them pacifies all sins. The 7 Varshas there are Shveta, Lohita, Jimuta, Harita, Vaidyuta, Manasa, and Suprabha as the 7th. Now Bibek Debroy makes a footnote here saying Lohita is the same as Rohita. Continuing on with the text, there are 4 Varnas in those 7 Varshas. O supreme among Brahmanas, Varnas exist in Shalmala. They are distinct and Kapilas, Arunas, Pitas and Krishnas are respectively Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. So Krishnas are Shudras, Vaishyas are Pitas, Kshatriyas are Arunas, Brahmanas are Kapilas. All of them worship the undecaying Vishnu, who is in all Atmans, in the form of Vayu. They worship him through the best of sacrifices, and he is present in those sacrifices, so worshipping air. The gods reside in that extremely beautiful region. There is a giant Shalmali tree that gives the region its name. This Dvipa is surrounded by an ocean of liquor on all sides, and the size of this ocean is the same as Shalmala itself. In every direction, that ocean of liquor is surrounded by Kushadvipa. Its dimensions are double the size of Shalmala. It was Jyotishmat in Kushadvipa. Hear about his 7 sons, Udbhida, Venumat, Svedatha, Randhana, Dhirita, Dhrita, Prabhakara and Kapila. The mountains and the Varshas are named after them, along with Daityas, Danavas, gods, Gandharvas, Yakshas, Kimpurushas and others. Humans reside there. There are 4 Varnas engaged in their own activities. O supreme among Brahmanas, in respective order, Damins, Shushmins, Snehas and Mandehas are said to be Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. So Damins are Brahmanas, Shushmins are Kshatriyas, Snehas are Vaishyas and Mandehas are Shudras. For the sake of protecting their rights of ownership in the decreed rights, they observe them. In Kushadvipa, they worship Janardana in the form of the Brahman. They worship him and cast aside the strong sense of ownership that exists in the fruits of the rights. O supreme among Brahmanas, in that Dvipa, the 7 mountains in the Varshas are Vidruma, Hemashela, Dyutimat, Pushtimat, Kusheshaya, Hari and Mount Mandara as the 7th. There are 7 rivers. In due order, hear their names. Dhutapapa, Shiva, Pavitri, Sanmati, Vidyudambha, Mahi and another one. Bibek Debroy makes a footnote that the name of the 7th river hasn't been given. Maybe it got lost out, the text got lost out. All of them dispel all sins. There are thousands of other minor rivers and mountains. Kushadvipa has a clump of kusha grass. This is said to be the reason for the name. The Dvipa is surrounded by an ocean of ghee, which has the same size as the Dvipa itself. The ocean of ghee is surrounded by Kroncha Dvipa. O best among sages, it has been heard that Kroncha Dvipa is another great region. In expanse, its dimensions are double the size of Kushadvipa. It is the great-souled Dyutimat in Kroncha Dvipa, and he had 7 sons. The king named Varshas after their names, Kushaga, Mandaga, Ushna, Pivara and Andharaka. Kushaga, Mandaga, Ushna, Pivara, Andhakarana, Muni and Dundubhi. O Brahmanas, these were the 7 sons. O best among sages, there are extremely beautiful mountains in these Varshas, frequented by gods and Gandharvas. I will name them next. Kroncha, Vamana, Andhakaraka as the 3rd, Devavrata, Dhama, Pundarikvan and the great mountain of Dundubhi. Just as each Dvipa is the Just as each dvipa is twice the size of the preceding one, each beautiful mountain in a varsha is twice the size of the mountain in the preceding varsha. Along with large numbers of gods, the subjects reside there without any fear. O best among Brahmanas, respectively, Pushkalas are the Brahmanas, Pushkaras are the Kshatriyas, and Dhanyas are Vaishyas. Or Shudras, because Bibek Debroy makes a footnote here that only 3 names were given. Maybe another one, the print got lost out, got scratched out somewhat. O best among sages, they drink the water of the rivers, hear about those now. There are hundreds of rivers that flow downwards, but the 7 main ones are Gauri, Kumudvati, Sandhya, Ratri, Manojava, Khyati, and Pundarika. These are the 7 rivers in the Varshas. There, the Varnas, Pushkaras, and others use sacrifices to worship the illustrious Janardana in the form of Yogi Rudra. Yogi Rudra. In every direction, Kroncha Dvipa is surrounded by an ocean of curds that is the same size as Kroncha Dvipa itself. O supreme among Brahmanas, the ocean of curds is surrounded by Shaka Dvipa, which is twice the size of Kroncha Dvipa. The extremely great-souled lord of Shaka Dvipa, Bhavya, had 7 sons, and he gave them 7 Varshas. They were Jalada, Kumara, Sukumara, Maniraka, Kusumoda, Modaki, and Mahadruma as the 7th. The 7 Varshas were respectively named after them. There are 7 mountains that divide the Varshas. O Brahmanas, they are Udayagiri, Jaladhara, Raivataka, Shyama, Ambhogiri, Astikeya, and the beautiful Kesari, supreme among mountains. There is a great Shaka tree. Bibek Debroy makes a footnote here that the Shaka tree is the Shirisha tree, a variety of acacia or mimosa. Now that great Shaka tree there, frequented by Siddhas and Gandharvas. If one touches the breeze that blows through its leaves, one is filled with great delight. There are sacred habitations there, filled with the 4 Varnas. Those great-souled ones reside there, without any fear and without any disease. There are extremely sacred rivers there, and they cleanse all sins. They are Sukumari, Kumari, Nalini, Renuka, Ikshu, Dhenuka, and Gabhasti as the 7th. O supreme among Brahmanas, other than these, there are tens of thousands of minor rivers. There are hundreds and thousands of mountains. Those who reside in the clouds and other places drink those waters and are happy. Living in clouds meaning obviously the mountainous fog, which looks like clouds from another mountain or from the plains, if you've ever been to a hilly region. Other than these, the habitations in the Varshas are characterized by the 4th objective of existence, that is, moksha. The rivers there are extremely sacred and descend from heaven to earth, because by heaven they mean the hilly regions Uttarakhand, Kailasha, etc. Dharma does not suffer. There is no excessive delight, no harshness. In those 7 regions, there is no violation of the ordinances. There are Magas, Magadhas, Manashas, and Mandagas. The Magas are Brahmanas, the Magadhas are Kshatriyas, the Manasas are Vaishyas, and the Mandagas are known as Shudras. Interesting. Magadhas are Kshatriyas. See, in different context, in mixing them up with geography, they are also giving descriptions of different kingdoms, different people, and different locations actually. So there are different layers to the Brahma Purana. You have to look at every different context as if it was written by someone, some separate person, and their description of completely different things. It's not all metaphysical and metaphorical. You have to read between the lines, so to speak. In Shakadvipa, Vishnu Hari exists in the form of Surya and is properly worshipped, following the prescribed rites by those who have controlled their souls. O Brahmanas, in every direction, Shakadvipa is girdled by an ocean of milk that has the same dimensions as Shakadvipa. O Brahmanas, in every direction, that ocean of milk is surrounded by the region known as Pushkara, and this Dvipa is double the size of Shakadvipa. Savana was there in Pushkara. He was the lord of Pushkara Dvipa, and his sons were Mahavita and Dhataki. The 2 Varshas there are named after them and are known as Mahavita's region and Dhataki's region. O immensely fortunate ones, there is only one famous mountain in these Varshas, and it is known as Manosattara. It is right in the middle, circular in shape, with an altitude of 50,000 yojanas. In every direction like a cylinder, its expanse is the same. This seems to indicate a radius of 50,000 yojanas. Pushkara Dvipa is like a circle and stationed in the middle. The mountain divides it into two parts. The great mountain is located in the center and each part is like a half circle. Men live for 10,000 years there. They are free from disease and free from grief. They are devoid of attachment and hatred. O Brahmanas, there is no superior or inferior there, no one who is a killer and no one who is killed. There is no jealousy, malice, fear, anger or avarice and the other vices. Mahavita's region is on the outside and ornaments Dhataki's regions. The mountain of Manosattara is frequented by gods and daityas. In the region known as Pushkara Dvipa, there is no notion of truth or falsehood. In the region known as Pushkara Dvipa, there are no rivers or mountains, obviously other than Manosattara. Through destiny, all the men there are identical in form. There is no notion of varna or ashrama and no notion of rites of dharma. This is so interesting. Concepts of the three Vedas. The text only uses the word three, presumably meaning the three Vedas. The concepts of the three Vedas, livelihood, punishment, policy, and service do not exist. O Brahmanas, the two Varshas there are described as heaven on earth. It is pleasant for everyone, all the time. Old age and disease do not exist. O Brahmanas, this is what happens in the Mahavita and Dhataki parts of Pushkara. So in heaven, which is the Pushkara Dvipa mountains, there is no dharma itself, no rites of dharmas and no different varnas as well. This is an interesting concept. There is a Nyayagrodha tree in Pushkara Dvipa and it is Brahma's excellent spot. Worshipped by the gods and the asuras, Brahma resides there. Asuras, people think asuras were sad little Dravidians who were oppressed by Aryans. So asuras were also worshipping Brahma there. Pushkara is surrounded by an ocean of sweet water. Its expanse is exactly the same as that of Pushkara itself. Thus, each of the 7 dvipas is surrounded by an ocean. Each dvipa and each ocean is twice the size of the preceding one. In each of the oceans, the volume of the liquid always remains constant. Unlike water in a vessel, when it is heated, the volume never increases or decreases. Like that, when the moon waxes, the volume of liquid in the ocean remains constant. O best among Brahmanas, there is no increase or decrease in the waters. However, in both Shukla Paksha and Krishna Paksha, that is, respectively the bright and dark lunar fortnights, when the moon rises or sets, the waters in the oceans are seen to increase and decrease by 510 angulas. That is, an angula is the length of a finger. In Bengali we say angul. In Hindi you all say ungli. In classical Bengali we say onguli. Today we say angul, which is actually more closer to what the original text says, that is angula. Interesting. In Pushkara Dvipa, food arrives on its own. O Brahmanas, the subjects always enjoy the 6 kinds of taste. A world is seen to exist around the ocean of sweet water, double the size of the ocean. The ground is golden and is devoid of all creatures. The mountain known as Lokaloka. Lokaloka can be interpreted in various ways. This is Bibek Debroy's footnote. Places where there is light versus places where there is darkness, populated places versus uninhabited regions, and so on. The mountain known as Lokaloka exists there and it is 10,000 yojanas in expanse. The mountain is also many yojanas high. Established there, the mountain is surrounded by darkness on every side. In every direction, the terrible mountain is surrounded by darkness. O supreme among Brahmanas, beyond this terrible mountain, the ground extends for 50 scores of yojanas and dvipas, oceans and mountains. So remember this thing, maybe someday research will come out on what exactly is that terrible mountain. What is the terrible mountain that they speak of, interesting in those places. O supreme among Brahmanas, beyond this terrible mountain, the ground extends for 50 crores of yojanas and with dvipas, oceans and mountains. Bibek Debroy makes a footnote here saying, the final shlokas of this chapter are difficult to translate since the meaning is not self-evident. O supreme among Brahmanas, this is the foundation of everything in the universe. Its attributes are superior to all the elements. This is both the creator and the ordainer.